Hey everyone, it's Kandace and Sher with Processing Trauma Out Loud. And today we have a really special treat for our listeners. Sher, it's been, over 4 years ago that you and I invested not only in one on one story work coaching, but then not too long after, we invested in a story group. Both of our stories involve the beauty, the continued healing, and how we do not regret the investment of joining a story group. And today we get to interview our friends, Stephanie and Kate, who we met through a group, who are now facilitating a group. I'm not going to say a whole lot because I really want them to share their story, but Stephanie and Kate, we are so excited to have you here with us. Actually, not even here just with us, but what you two are doing and are going to do to help women heal from trauma. Like, we are some of your biggest cheerleaders here.
Thank you so much. This is Kate, and we're really happy to be here.
Yeah, it's such an honor to get asked to join you all on your podcast.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to kind of hand it over to Sher for a bit. She actually sent you a few things to think about before we do this interview. And I know that we've had some, Sharon always say, the discussion before the discussion, and just super looking forward to what you're going to share with our listeners today.
Yeah, and so we're just going to really dive right in. And we want our listeners to get a glimpse of who you are, because we talk all the time about signing up for a story group and encouraging our listeners to sign up. And so we felt like the best thing we can do is offer a glimpse of who you are to enable people to just listen and watch and think about, would I like to be in a story group with these women? And so that's what we're all about here today. Stephanie, give us a little glimpse of who you are, where you're located, and what you're up to in the world.
Okay. Well, I live in Oklahoma, and I'm the mom of 4 kids that are in the teen to young adult phase. So we are experiencing a whole new season of life.
Yes.
And I love being their mom. And surprisingly, I actually love being a teenage mom, even though it's plenty challenging. But I am a story work coach, and I have my own coaching business that I'm getting going. And I call it the space between the words. Because that's where I see the tending needs to happen. In my own story, there were lots and lots of words always coming at me, but where I needed tending and care, and what I was seeing all along was the stuff happening between the words. And that's where I needed help making sense of life.
Thank you.
Yeah, Stephanie, I'm curious. I mean, Sharon, I know, some of your story, and then you and I got to travel together, and I heard a lot of your story and just the work that you've done and are doing around your story. I am curious a little bit more what, like, the space between the words, is that, I guess I'm curious, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like, if someone's like, what does that mean? The space between the words.
Well,
I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but
yeah. Well, first off, I'm really glad that it brings you curiosity, because I really hope that when people hear that phrase, they stop and think about, wait, what? But I I've always been a very highly observant person and very hyper aware of people's facial expressions and their intentions that you can feel in a room with them. But I didn't have language, right? Because this all started when I was very young. So my body knew a lot of what was going on, but there was no language for it. And the only language I was being given was more in a gaslighting realm. These are good adults. They know what they're doing. They're in control. Everything's fine. You should have a good attitude about this. Things like that, right? And yet there was a lot going on inside me that was just confused because it wasn't matching what I was reading between the words.
Yeah.
And so that's where I have had to have a lot of tending, is for all those spaces between all the words that I have heard for so many years. And that's what I want to offer to other people, because I do think I'm really good at seeing those spaces.
Sher and I have been in group with you, and you are good at it. You are very, very good at it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie, for just clarifying that and telling us a little bit more, giving us more of a glimpse of where your heart is and a little bit about your story. And we'll be back in a minute to hear more about your story. Kate, how about you? Where are you at and what are you doing in the world?
Well, I am in Iowa, a little tiny community, country community, and very rural, lots of cows, lots of crops, not a lot of people. But I am loving the area that I'm in now. And also, like Stephanie, I have 4 children as well, a little bit younger than hers, just getting started in that teenage space, which is, I'm glad to see other people have thrived there. So I'm looking forward to that as well. I am a spiritual direction coach, trauma informed story coach. I have my own practice where I work with clients primarily online, and we cover a lot of things. But my practice is called Love Rising because when I began my work, that was the piece that needed to grow for me, was love for myself, which came from really, really experienced practitioners pouring love into me. And then that began to grow and develop within myself. So that's kind of my goal, is to help people look at themselves. First, me see them without any judgment, and then help them cultivate that own love within themselves as well.
Really great. I love the name too, Love Rising. Beautiful.
Kate, you said a few things that caught my attention, but can you say a little bit more of, why is it important for us to say no judgment?
I think when we are coming from a place of, and we talk a lot about childhood trauma or hard experiences, I think is another way to look at it as kids, things that will seem confusing. We don't realize we're kind of swimming in waters of judgment. It's just kind of what we've been given to grow in. But when we experience spaces where where the water feels clearer, like that layer of judgment is missing. Think of it like oil on top of water. There's just kind of like this sticky, slimy stuff. But when you enter clear water with someone and you can think, oh, this is the way I've been meant to be swimming all this time. I didn't even know this was possible. And so that's kind of the way I think of looking at somebody, without giving them clear water to drink or to swim in or to just be in. with another person. I think it's so important to see the difference.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really good. I think that when we first experience that, because our body is familiar with being in waters of judgment, sometimes we actually gravitate towards it subconsciously because we kind of know what to do in that space. I know for me, my brain was short circuited literally as
Mhm.
those new neural pathways were being formed. That, oh gosh, I'm in the presence of people who are not judging me.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a it's a very intense experience, I think.
Mhm.
And you don't realize this is what you're made for.
Mm.
Even the first couple times you experience no judgment,
Mhm.
it takes a while to realize like this is where safety actually is. This is what is actually safe for me. Yeah, I agree with you, Kandace. It's really intense.
I do want to add, I want to add this for our listeners. No judgment doesn't mean that I didn't have my story work coach and my story group sisters at times say, have you ever considered it looking at this? It was the way that it was done because I needed guidance. There's a difference between judgment to get someone to change and loving guidance because you see the potential in someone to grow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I will just add that we cannot heal in a context of judgment,
Mhm.
not even self judgment, which we are usually quite proficient at. So, coming to that place where not only am I not being judged by others, but I'm even being invited out of the ways that I am judging my own self and going from a place of judgment and then experiencing a context of love. I mean, it's like you said, Kandace, it just breathtaking. It startles us. It's like, wait, what? I don't know what to do with this, but I like it. And it's scary. Yeah, it can be scary too. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I feel like we are already taking a dive into a little bit into your stories. But I would like to have you share just a little bit more with us about um, why are you here? Why does story work matter to you? How has story work been significant in your life? Tell us a little bit about your story of just your story. Maybe when you discovered you had a story and wanted to spend some time going into aspects of your own story that maybe you had never even considered before. So, Stephanie, I'm gonna just call on you and let you lead the way here.
All right. Well, I don't know that there was a point that I realized I had a story. I think that was a much more gradual progression for me. But I started looking into story work because I always loved stories. And I knew I related to stories. And I had reached a point in my life where I had been doing for years and years and years all the right things, being the good Christian woman, caring for my family, giving my all, doing everything my parents had ever told me to do. And I am just finding myself dying on the inside. And I just remember being in the front of my house out in the yard and just thinking, I have got to find help. I mean, if I don't find help, I think I'm going to die and be dead on the inside forever. And I really don't want to be dead, but I don't know what else to do. So that started a lot of pieces, testing out different things and finding things that didn't work. And I found Adam Young's podcast, kind of a God thing, how I found that, and started hearing about story work, which then led me to be like, well, I love what he's saying. I love stories. This might be a really good way to approach my therapy journey. And So through his podcast, I found my facilitator, and working with her was, I had never in my life been talked to so kindly. I didn't even know that it was possible to have the level of kindness offered to me. And of course, there's a whole season of, I can't believe that this is really true. There's got to be an angle eventually to all this. And week after week, there wasn't. If I didn't get my homework done, it was fine. I could decide whether I wanted to do it or not. And just offering kindness and um, the pauses, the things that have been so normal in my life. And my facilitator would say, "Did your dad always do that?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, of course." Hmm. And then I was like, why is she humming over this? This is normal. Doesn't everybody's family look like this? And that would stir my mind into curiosity, because she wouldn't even have to explain. And in that moment, eventually there would be more when I could tolerate that. And so just this coming to see, I did have a story, that there was a lot of trauma, that we had all done a very good job putting our happy faces on and not letting anyone know and slapping the Jesus sticker on everything,
Mhm.
and saying we were fine.
Mhm.
But when working through your story and finding the truth, there is so much freedom. Of course, as I think it's Dan Allender says, the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. you do have to go through all the different phases.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's this, having my facilitator there able to tolerate all those phases that I'm going through, to come to the place where I could be at peace with the truth. I don't like this truth. I would never choose this truth, but my body can find a level of rest because it's actually the truth.
Mhm. Stephanie, I want to ask a question really quick. I'm curious because we can go back and forth on this scale, but was your experience internally, this is too much? No one can handle what's really going inside of me? Or was it more of um, like, this is just no big deal, like a minimization? When you started working with your story work coach, and you use the word, like what I heard was she didn't push you until you were ready to share more. What was going on with you internally? Were you thinking, I'm going to overwhelm her if I just tell her all this truth? Or were you still thinking, oh, this just isn't that big of a deal?
I would say I was probably more on the, that's not such a big deal. I mean, I think there was, because of how I was raised, you have to edit everything. There is this weighing. This is part of why I read faces. I am reading your face to tell, what level can I tell you this? How do I need to edit this for you to tolerate this? Because I'm so used to my parents and others in my life who cannot tolerate much. They cannot tolerate much of the truth. So there is, that was so normal that it wasn't even a specific thought. So of course I'm always editing.
Mhm.
And of course this is just how my family is.
Yeah. Mm.
But I will say that something that I find really interesting about my story work is that my facilitator saw very quickly how much I read faces and did that editing, that she switched us to only doing audio. So we started off a couple sessions on FaceTime because it was right before Zoom became a big thing. And then she just switched without any big deal. It was just like, oh, this is just how we're doing it. And many weeks down the road, I was like, actually, it might have been months. I was just, what caused us to move to this? And she just said, oh, I just saw that you were reading my face and unable to attend to yourself and focus on your needs when you were watching my face.
When you told me that, I was like, I will just disclose this. We have the same coach.
Yes.
I was like, that is the brilliance of my story work coach. And I've never thought of doing that. And I saw how in your story and what she saw, I mean, you've been mentored by someone who, I mean, you already had that gift, Stephanie. You already had it. But the fact that she read you that well is, it just makes sense to me. You needed someone that could see that well because you freaking see so well.
Yes.
Yeah.
How does
And
it feel to you?
the kindness to say she didn't need me to attend to her in any way at all. That I could just focus on me. I was just sitting in my bedroom on the phone every week, able to think about how is that affecting me? Oh, yeah, what am I feeling? I've not been allowed to give language to what I'm feeling.
Mm.
Mm. I have 100 questions, and I would love to camp right here for a long time. Stephanie, thank you for sharing just that little bit, which is a lot, and for letting us know you in places where you have experienced a lot of pain.
Mhm.
And I love how where you experience so much pain, you have now received so much care, like
Mhm.
in that place where you needed such brilliant care. Of that.
Yeah, I say story work saved my life.
Yeah. Amen, sister. Me too.
Amen.
Yes.
Thank you. Kate, we would also love to hear a little, just a glimpse. Obviously, I wish we could share. I wish we could interview you for an hour or two, and maybe we will at some point.
Share. We actually can at some point. We decide this is our.
Oh, I'm thinking about it. Believe me. So, but so Kate, give us a little look at your journey of where you've come from and what got you connected with story work and why you think story work is the bomb, as Kandace and I have recently referred to it.
I think it's really interesting, and I've only come to this realization recently that I think Storywork saved me from about 5 or 6 different cults that I didn't even know I was a part of. And I realized, I know you asked, when did you realize you had a story? And I was thinking about that, and I thought, I think when my body started to fail me, I realized there was something going on that I didn't have awareness of. I'm always a researcher and a learner, and I love gaining knowledge and applying it. I didn't have context for what was going on with my body. My hair was falling out. I was suffering from inflammation all the time, just pain, foggy brain. And as I started looking for something, I didn't know what I was looking for. I also somehow found Adam Young's podcast also. And I started binge listening because this resonated with something in me, this concept of listening to your body because your body is telling you things. And as I listened, he had someone that he interviewed on his podcast who lived 20 minutes from me, who was a story work coach. And I thought to myself, this is amazing. I didn't think anybody lived in the Midwest who was doing this. And contacted her and started that process. And it took a long time. But I think immediately once I stepped into that space with the coach, that she was very wise. And I now know she had experienced a lot of the same things that I did in her family and has really been like that kind person. I think it was that first person I was talking about, no judgment before. It was the first person I'd ever experienced who offered me I know now is attunement. So just seeing me clearly without any sort of judgment on top of it, just full on love. Whatever you are bringing to me today, I can handle. And that had never been my experience from the time I was a child through any relationships I had into that present moment. I had always been the one to have to carry myself and everyone around me. And to be in the presence of someone who was strong and resilient and didn't require anything of me, that piece alone healed so much of my story. I didn't even realize at the time what was happening. But now as I look back, I'm like, that piece being with someone who didn't expect, demand, require anything of me and simply wanted to be with me and love me, that healed parts of me I would have never been able to ask for, explain with any words that I knew. And so that is how I knew I had a story when my body started falling apart. And as I walked through my body, I've learned to trust my body implicitly and listen to it so well. Maybe I would say too well. Part of me would say, oh, too well. No, I am listening to it so well, and I am not discounting what it tells me anymore. And now I know how to care for it. And I think that's something Stephanie and I had talked about with this group that we're going to start is we are going to teach some tools to help your body regulate, because that's a piece of this whole process, engaging your story and listening to your body. So that's probably a lot of information, but I hope that that just gives a little taste as to why I think it's so important to be in this work and practicing together.
Kate, we all came into this. I'm going to use the word desperate. We were just all looking for something that had been missing in our healing journeys. And initially, and still today, there's an investment. There's an investment really on every level, so there's always more risk, right? The more vulnerable you are, the more you're seen, the more intimacy that is experienced. We have to work through things because our vulnerability at one point was very much taken advantage of. And so there's also financial investment. And we understand that financial piece for some is something that they take into consideration. We all have had to do that. And we can all say years later that we don't regret spending one penny, cutting back on something to go to these therapeutic spaces where the people who've gone before us have also invested in the training and the equipping. And yet we also are providing offerings that are free, in different ways. And, I hope it's okay that I say this, and I'll just say this, I don't care. We can edit it out if we need to. But you started something recently that's just, is it once a month that it's a free gathering? Can you
Yes. Yeah.
can you share 30 seconds on that?
Sure. So I and it's just started just in the last month. I did my first ever pop-up free healing group. And I'll be honest, I was a little nervous walking into it because I'm like, it can take a lot of time to develop camaraderie and vulnerability. But I thought this is a way to get some healing tools into the hands of people who might otherwise not be able to afford that initial investment. And maybe as they work through being seen, having space held for them, learning a few tools that they will see the value, because sometimes we don't know the value until we experience it. And so without, violating anybody's confidentiality, we had an amazing first group, and the women in the group just showed up and were open and honest with me and with each other. And it was only an hour. It was 90 minutes, an hour and a half, and it could have gone on. It could have gone on for 3 hours. So it was a beautiful time, and I'm really excited to do it again. So yep, once a month, I'll just be doing different times of the week. I'll be doing another free, just kind of a pop-up group, and for anyone who can come.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, and we will give contact information at the end of our session here, at the end of our interview here today. So for all of our listeners who want to get in touch with you for that, hang on, you'll find out that information in a bit. I also had a question for you too, Kate, talking about learning about your body and doing grounding practices, and which this has been something that has been huge for all of us. But for me too, I had to really study because I was so disconnected. But I'm just curious, what is one of your, and you could probably list a bunch, but what is one of your favorite practices that helps you find regulation for your body?
This is going to sound very strange, but because I am very much in my head person, I was the same as you. I was very disconnected from my body. And so my favorite practice, it still is, I've tried a whole bunch. I'm like, I'm always coming back to this, is I get a soft cloth and I rub it on my feet and ankles. So it's not skin on skin. There's a barrier, but it's bringing awareness to the furthest part of my body from my brain. Something about that brings a connective response through my entire nervous system. I don't know all of the ins and outs and science behind the nervous system. I know some, but the fact that I need that stimulation on the furthest part of my body from my brain has just been an amazing experience. And the feeling it gives me, I'm like, oh, I can picture my toe and I can feel it, which sounds funny, but it brings an awareness of this is my body in space, and I'm aware of it all. And it feels very, there's a healing aspect to it, and also like a power aspect. Like, this is my body. Like, I can feel it all, and I'm in control of it all. And so that's been my favorite one. It's simple and easy, but feels really, really good when it's done. So yeah.
Yeah. I love it. And I love how you discovered that. I don't know if you made it up or if somebody told you, but did you make it up?
No, nope. I heard it was from a nervous system trainer. So
okay. Yeah. But we get to be the scientists of our own body, the researchers of our own body to figure out what works. And I think a lot of times when we listen, our body really leads us to the practices that work and that we need.
yes.
True.
So I want to ask you each to share. Thank you so much, Kate, for sharing that with us. Really, such a gift. I would like each of you to share a little bit about the upcoming story group. Maybe just give us some of the specifics about it, the details, as well as why would someone want to come to your story group? I would love to hear each of you just address that. So, Stephanie, do you want to just start by giving us the details as far as how many weeks and when does it start and all of that? And we'll give as a matter of fact, what's the website where they can go to get these details, Kate?
It will be on my loverising.live, Live website, loverising.live.
Okay. Good. So, but Stephanie, go ahead and just tell us a little bit about what those details are.
Sure. We are going to start July 11th, and that's a Thursday, and we'll be meeting always on Thursdays, and it will be 8 weeks of engagement and nervous system, body grounding practices mixed in there. And we have spots for 6 women. We feel like that is a good amount for our group to be able to give the care to everyone through the 8 weeks.
Mm.
So that's what we have going on.
Good. Yes.
What time? What are the times going to be on those days?
6 to 7:30 Central.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sure I wrote that down, but
That's okay.
Perfect. Okay, good. And Stephanie, how would you encourage someone to sign up for your group? What are you offering that you believe will be impacting for people who are probably entering story work for the first time, or maybe not, but let's speak especially to the person who has really not done story work yet, or a story group.
Well, I would say this is for working on stories from childhood. So 18 and under stories. And many times it's those stories that you think, I don't know why I always remember this, but because we all have those stories. And a lot of times I think why we remember them is because our bodies know there's importance and care needed in these stories, even though we don't consciously understand why this is important.
Yeah.
So we all have those stories, and we'll teach you a format of how to write one of those stories out. And then you would bring it to group and read it. And then we would have the opportunity to care for you while you read your story, because it takes you into such tender places. And sometimes you're very surprised how tender some of these places are. I think sometimes you can just write it down and you're like, okay. And then you have to read it. And oh boy, the emotions can come. So in those places, we then offer kindness and care and curiosity, because curiosity is, I think, the place where we learn why this story is important.
Yeah.
So good.
Everybody has a story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Stephanie, I did not know that my story was serious until someone else saw my story. Because it's kind of like what Kate was saying, and you both said it in some way. There was like, this just was normal. And taking our story seriously might be one of the most powerful things that we can do for our own healing and growth and maturity. I mean, it is, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And I would say, if you're not in a place where you're able to articulate that for yourself, like I certainly wouldn't have necessarily been able to say, oh, I should be a priority and I want care for this. But I wanted to be able to be a good mom for my kids. I wanted to be an alive mom for my kids and present. So I know my kids played a big role in that. And then I found that it was okay to make me important as I was pursuing goodness for my kids.
Yeah.
Beautifully said.
Yeah. The best. Yeah. Kate, anything to add?
I just want to say, since I started in coaching, like one-on-one coaching initially with story work, then I went into a group, and I've now been in part of a couple different groups. And the one-on-one brought me to the place where I realized this was important. The group expanded my lens and my ability to be vulnerable with other safe people. And so, and it confirmed so many things because I thought, oh, there's this one like unicorn person in the world who will actually accept me for me. But when you get a group of people who are all wanting to grow and heal together, you realize this is what is actually good and right. And it confirmed so many good things. Again, just brought healing from all sorts of different angles that I didn't even realize I needed. And that confirmation piece where it's not just one person, there are others and they are out there. And I'm not going to give up until I'm surrounded by these good, kind people.
And Kate, I just love what you said because this is what came to me. One-on-one with my story work coach with I did first. There was this like, is she really fooled thinking that I'm good and kind and have a purpose and that my past isn't just my identity? You know, there was a little bit of that. And then I'm like, wait a minute. So did these other 7 women. Wait a minute. So did these other 5 women. There's so much power in that.
Yes.
I feel like that's what you're saying, maybe.
Exactly. Yes, that's exactly it. You think, oh, I could be fooling this person, or does she really see? And then it's like, oh, well, everything that she said to me individually is being confirmed by other people. And my story, even the harmful parts of my story are being confirmed by other people. And there's a validation in that. We talk about crowdfunding being the way to grow things, right? I feel like I have been crowd funded by really kind, caring people in my story. Like it's the healing is exponential, I think.
Could I add one little thing to that?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think the other piece that is so great in a group is that you're hearing other people's stories and realizing your story is not as isolated as you believed it to be. You're here like, oh, I'm resonating with what's going on in your story, and I can see in your story that's a big deal, but I resonate with it because I think there's some of that in my story too. And so you become more comfortable being able to say, oh, that is my story. Because I can see, oh, there, and I'm not the only freak running around here.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. And I'm thinking, Kate, about the whole crowdfunding concept of being a way to get money. Story group is a way to get love, to get healing, to get the freedom, to move toward the freedom that our heart and soul and body long for. And we have all experienced this, and we are huge believers in the power and the love of being in and a part of a story group. And so we love it that you are launching this next month, just a few more weeks from now. And we encourage our listeners to reach out to you at loverising.live and contact you if they have more questions, to get all of their questions answered and take a courageous jump toward something that has so much potential to change your life. I know Kandace and I have talked about when I did my first story group, I signed up at the 11th hour. I really agonized over, do I have the courage to do this? And I almost did not do it. And it takes my breath away now to think about if I had missed that opportunity, because it absolutely changed my life. So good to be with you here today on our podcast and to share this space with you. And we are very excited to support you however we can as you do this group, but we're excited for our listeners to have this opportunity. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you both.
Thank you so much. We love both of you, and it was great to be here today.
We love you.
Thank you all so much. And getting to chat with you for a while is just such a delight.
I always have these ideas at the end of our podcast, so I'm thinking it'd be fun to come back after your story group and kind of do a follow-up. Yeah,
really that would be great.
Yeah, good. Well, I usually say to Kandace at the end of our episodes, I say, love you, friend. And today I will say, love you, friends.
Love you.
Too.
Love you too.